welcome to Where Eagles Soar, the Saturday night show where we bring the magnanimous Kiler Davenport in, and we have some serious fun on Saturday nights, to be sure. And it's going to be even more fun tonight because we have joining us as well Elliot Bernstein. So prepare to have your fire stoked, people. Prepare to have your jet fuel topped up, because I assure you, by the end of this show, you'll want to be flying. Promise. That's coming from a pilot too, so promise. Now, we do have Tony here, so I'll bring Tony in, and I know I've got Kiler and Elliot in the call here, so we're going to have some fun tonight. Tony, how are you doing?
Not too bad at all. Yourself?
Oh, pretty good, pretty good. You know the normal sorting stuff out, staying on top of the game, and working on a new essay. It's going to be a long one, so but it'll be poignant for sure. Anyway, so Kiler and Elliot, how are you guys doing?
I'm here. I'm doing great. How are y'all? I'm glad to be here. Exciting. Very excited to be on this show tonight.
Likewise, this is Elliot.
Hey, Elliot, how you doing? Just for reference, guys, can you mute your mic on Skype when you're not talking, because we're getting a lot of echo feedback. I know it's a bit of a nuisance, but when we're not using headphones, the speakers have a tendency of picking it up, and there's about a half-second delay, and it's a really cool effect. I've used it in the studio. It's just doesn't work for live radio too well. So just a mental note on that, guys. So thank you so much, Elliot. Great to have you. Kiler, great to have you. And Tony, of course, as always. I have no idea where I want to begin tonight, so how about one of you guys throw the die out and see where we go?
Well, I guess I could kick it. Had a great moment this morning on Center for Empathy and Compassion with Edwin Rush. Went to my first online webinar over there, which I haven't attended. They've been inviting me for the last 3 or 4 months, and I never have attended one, but I did go, and it was interesting. Bonded with some folks. It's all about learning to listen to each other. It's all about learning to feel what each other is saying and try to let the other person know that you heard them and you understood them and you comprehended what they were saying and you really cared about what their feelings were concerning whatever they're talking about, whether it be personal or political or whatever. And I felt a little silly over there. Edwin runs it a little bit differently, but he likes the feelings, and we light the candle on the air, and it's all webinars. Pretty cool. Lights the candle, and we talk about different things. And I just felt a little odd, but I kind of released myself and kind of got a little emotional and kind of soft there for a while. This old hard-ass guy here got a little softy. And it was cool. We went for an hour. We bonded with each other. We made some new friends. It was neat. It was a neat morning. I'm going to attend some more of those at Empathy and Compassion. I think all of you should check it out at least once, the Center for Empathy and Compassion there with Edwin Rush. So that's how my morning went.
Well, that's an awesome morning. And Elliot, I know we've got a lot of information that you need to get out. We already had a chance to share an hour with you the other night, and which is exactly why you're here tonight, because what we have unfolding before us is a system that is going to come crashing down, and it's by virtue of the actions of system and the stealing of life energy from so many of us. And isn't it funny? It's always through the lawyers. It's always through the corrupt courts. It's funny, they have all the guns walking around with uniforms. We're talking armed pirates. They call them cops, I think, but and then, of course, something goes wrong, and you go into their courts that, of course, are controlled by them, and the defense and prosecuting lawyers and the judge all get together and decide how it's all going to turn out, before anything actually ever gets started. So it's a very difficult thing for the average individual to imagine how the system works. But I assure you, having been deeply involved in it myself, got to see it firsthand and expose the fraud and crime for what it is, and the illusion. It's really just a big illusion. But Elliot, you have got a monster of an incredible story, and we're going to do our best to get that word out. So Why don't you chime in and let the good listeners know what's been going on?
Well, I'm steeped at the center of the corruptions. I developed technologies like we talked about the other night, scaling video and imaging that were, claimed to be the Holy Grail, have revolutionized the world, the internet, quite a lot of things. And, it was dollar value when, they brought in engineers from Intel, Lockheed, and Silicon Graphics, and they saw the technologies. They were asked by the head of a company, Real 3D, which was Silicon Graphics, Lockheed, and Intel, what's the value of these? These guys came up and said, hundreds of billions in the imaging and, priceless, holy grail in the video. And there were lawyers in that room, and those lawyers had already started, a process whereby they lift intellectual properties from their clients, whether they be artists, performers, or inventors. There's no bigger crime in the world than stealing a big patent, because you could rob a bank and carry off $100 million, but patents are worth billions to trillions. Take a look at some of the key inventions of the world. You'll know what I'm talking about. Over 20 years, you have monopoly powers. And so seeing this, the lawyers plotted to steal the technologies. They had a very sophisticated scam going with dual patents in different people's names and dual companies filed at the same minute in Delaware with the same names, and just a very sophisticated process that, we cracked open and discovered fraud. And, these were two big, powerful law firms, as I said the other night, Proskauer, Rose, and Foley and Lardner. And they had political connections. Proskauer has, a very big political Democratic presence in New York and in the First Department, which oversights the Wall Street lawyers. And dating back to Joseph Proskauer, who was part of the business plot. He was J.P. Morgan's stooge in the business plot and the attempt to assassinate FDR and align the country with fascist pigs. That was way back then. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that whole Smedley, Darlington, Butler story, etc. Henceforward, Proskauer had this power in New York, and Foley and Lardner had, as its chief executive, Michael Greby, who was at that time the chief counsel for the Republican National Committee. And they were about to go to jail because, there's falsified patent documents at the patent that have led to my intellectual properties being suspended pending federal investigations, both by the Patent Office and the FBI and others. And really what I stumbled into was the center of a massive crime organization, a criminal RICO cartel composed mainly of law firms. And, as we dug deeper down into this over the years, we've discovered that, these law firms date back to Sullivan and Cromwell and the Dulles Boys, and I'm sure you know of the influence of the Dulles Boys in importing thousands upon thousands of Nazis and giving them new identities, mostly Jewish identities, and the coveted, prized Nazis came in with Jewish identities they grabbed from the camps, and so they'd kill a doctor, lawyer, or something like that, and they would come into the United States as a Jewish doctor or lawyer. And Sullivan and Cromwell and the Dulles Boys had a big hand in putting him into political positions. You see him in NASA, you see him heading up the medical associations, and these are real Nazis. And, whatever the cover story is, engineers for nuclear bombs, whatever, without these people, who all should have been executed for their war crimes, we instead have allowed them into our government here in the United States virtually unchecked and virtually covered up so that nobody knows who they are. A very big problem to the Jewish community at large, where, you know, you don't know if the guy sitting next to you at temple is a Nazi or not. And of course we have that with the priests too. Remember, the Nazis killed, you know, a whole lot of priests. So anyways, they take these identities like lawyers, they become judges. Their idea is to reform the Fourth Reich here in the United States, using us as the host nation instead of the German people. And they start the same campaign they started on the Germans, you know, brainwashing, propaganda, just right out of the Goebbels playbook. All the old fascist guys that Grebbe from Foley can find in the RNC, he grabs. So you find Rove coming back into politics right at that time. They overthrow the presidency election in the Bush v. Gore election treason, I call it, where the Supreme Nazis, I mean the Supreme Court Nazis, usurped the people's vote in America, turning us into a banana republic, hence to forth. And what happened there is, you know, with the overthrow of the government, they started bringing back everybody. You know, you brought in Cheney. You know, these were all the big losers of the Nixon era, the guys who, you know, mostly murdered Kennedy, that gang, and couped the White House in that coup. And here we have them again coming in with a full coup of the government, a full plan of takeover funded by my technologies. And my technologies bring in billions, you know, probably tens of billions a year, which buys a lot of political clout, which is why we've seen all of the politicians bought off. And so they had the power to buy off or throw out anybody who got in their way. Like I said last week, we saw that with Alberto Gonzalez coming in, henchman to the Justice Department. Anybody investigating the election fraud was thrown out. I view it, Enron. All these people were witch hunted. And, you know, they literally started enacting things like the Enabling Act. I mean, the Patriot Act, which is, if you put up Hitler's Enabling Act next to the Patriot Act, I think we changed it basically from German to English and retitled it. We moved to remove habeas corpus from people we illegally seized off their streets in foreign countries and began systematically torturing them in black sites and Guantanamo, and we lit up the ovens at Abu Ghraib. And, you know, the Nazis were actually in power in the United States and still remain so. And they have brought in hosts of people from around the world who are part of their fascist beliefs in a world power grab that, you know, I think they look at, you know, the rest of the world as useless feeders when, you know, most of these are trust fund babies anyways. Not one of them's really earned anything. You could go back into any of their political careers in Congress, and basically they're like Kerry. They either married the money or they inherited the money. So, you know, you got a bunch of elitist losers running a country into the ground, stealing as much money as they can, which is the only way they know how to make any money, is by stealing from people, not caring about the grandmothers they're destroying, whose home values have plummeted, whose lives they've destroyed, whose families they're destroying, just like Nazis. And that's because they are Nazis, or a large group of them. And you know, not Nazis in the German sense. These are more fascists. And, you know, it consists mostly of elitists who, you know, believe they are better than the rest in their delusions of grandeur. And remember, Freud, you know, had no cure for delusions of grandeur other than to put them to sleep with compassion, because, you know, these people in their delusions can kill millions, hundreds of millions, as we've seen in World War I and World War II.
Oh, absolutely. That must be fun having a phone going off.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, go ahead if you have to get that, and we'll bring Kiler in for a second for some comments on that.
Oh.
Well, I agree with everything basically that he's saying, and I have, done some background on all of that, and I agree with the Nazi fascism. I agree with the power grab. I agree with the elitist and the globalist, what they're doing, and did hear him about the patents. I've heard a lot about grabbing patents. That's a big deal right now. I mean, a big, big deal that's not making the mainstream media at all. We should really study up on that. We all should. Obviously, he's already done that, and talk more about it, because there's a lot of people out there who have really invented some really fantastic things, like Tony, and have been just ripped and dipped and glazed, dazed, and amazed by some of the most powerful firms in the country, which I do have a powerful firm that works with me and has worked with me when I was undercover, and I know how these systems work. A little man comes up with a big project, and bang, it's gone. And they're patent grabbing, and it's a multi-trillion-dollar business, as he said, and it needs to be stopped. It needs to be talked about. It needs to be debated. But people aren't interested in it. It's not an exciting subject. It's not Dancing with the Stars. It's not Wheel of Fortune. So people aren't interested in it. The mainstream media is not interested in it because they're a part of it. So you end up with a situation where it gets buried, and no one talks about it, and they just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And that's exactly what's happening with some of the other things that aren't exciting, like economics are not exciting. The Fed's not exciting to talk about. International relations is way over the heads of most people, so we don't really talk about that in these general discussions. So, one of the biggest problems, it all boils back down to an uneducated electorate, an uneducated citizenship, and an uneducated and very passive people.
Kiler, can I interrupt there for a sec?
Yeah,
sure.
I was going to say, Elliot Tony won't be with us for the whole show, so
No, he can keep going. I just wanted to point out that...
No, I'm through.
Kiler, I was just trying to point out that, I used to think that about the people, that they're uneducated, but then I think if you look carefully at what I said about the Goebbels propaganda machine being used against American citizens, it is not an uneducated by choice mass. This is a conspiracy on your mind that has propagated you with wrong information about history, false information about what's in your foods, false information about what's in your waters, targeted attacks on people like Muslims, labeling of people with 24-hour Fox brainwash or MSNBC brainwash, all of it designed to start on infant minds. So it's almost like molesting an infant. It's almost a pedophilic act against your mind, because you're not uneducated. You might be very educated, but you're educated in bullshit. And so it's almost that we have to break them out of that matrix, as Tony was talking about with me the other day, and show them, because once you're out of that web of propaganda, once you turn your TV off, once you start to look at the newspaper as what it is, a bunch of made-up stories to brainwash you, just like Hitler and Goebbels were doing to the German people, you see that it's not really their fault. And when you get that compassion across to people, they become your advocate. When you call them sheep, they become your enemy. So in our efforts to expose people, we must really point out what's happening to them so that they don't feel stupid and uneducated because they don't understand reality, which they call conspiracy theory. And conspiracy theory was a word designed by the CIA to use on anything that was real. So the Kennedy assassination, let's make a magic bullet, this bullshit story that nobody could believe, real by calling anything else a conspiracy theory and labeling that person as such so that they feel ashamed to say anything because other people will ridicule them because the label has been affixed. And we can see that perfectly in 9/11. Anybody who believes that airplanes hit those buildings and fires brought down steel buildings and defied the law of physics not once, not twice, but thrice on a single day is not an idiot. They're just very brainwashed, because when you look at the TV and you see the well-designed graphics of a plane hitting a building, and it's coming from a news source which is supposed to be real, but it's not, you tend to believe it because we grew up in a TV generation. We're the third or fourth TV generation, where the other generations, yeah, a little bit of it was bullshit, some of it was lies, but now it's, down to commercials are bullshit. No, it's everything about news is scripted with graphs and, color-coded to brainwash these people. And so once you teach people that by educating them in that, their education levels, you'll see, are nothing short of rebellious. Meaning once, and I can't tell you how many people I said, my wife was the first one. I said to her on 9/11, honey, whatever we just saw defied the laws of physics. I don't know if you've taken physics, but steel buildings cannot fall down like that. She said to me, honey, I stand beside you on everything you say, and it's far out, some of this stuff. I look at the facts myself, and I analyze them, but I just saw that happen. And, if you tell people that, we're going to get killed, because the world believes whatever we just saw is truth. And now today, and literally just yesterday, she was having an argument with somebody, and she said, you have to start with the premise that the whole 9/11 story is bullshit. That everything they say becomes bullshit. Now, the real conspiracy theory is them. What we have here is a legal conspiracy. And there's a big difference between conspiracy theory, whatever that is, and legal conspiracies. Legal conspiracies can carry 20-year prison sentences. Conspiracy theory is conjecture on something, whatever. I don't even know what they are. To be quite honest, it's a CIA front term to cleverly outwit people that anything other than the government's official story is so crazy. And now what we're seeing is that people are waking up. Architects, engineers, people with brains all around saying, wait a minute, I don't care what I just saw. It defies my logic. So if it defies all that, then the people bringing it to me, these diarrhea stream news shitheads, I don't have, a conveyance of how they can actually go to work, put on a fraud all these millions of people, and think that it's going to hold up forever, the illusion. And just like with Hitler, the German people started to wake up, and they started to put internal pressure on their own sick, demented party. In fact, the Nazi party really exploded from the inside. As with all corrupt governments, soon they start asking people to hurt their own grandmothers, and people start rejecting and plotting a coup to topple the coup. That's what we need to do. And you cannot do it by enrolling people as sheep or calling them sheep, because then you just push them off, and it strengthens their argument that you're a conspiracy theorist, because that's how they shield themselves from listening to your attack of a sheep. So I've always been highly skeptical that we call these people sheep and call them victims of pedophile Goebbels propaganda.
Thank you for setting me straight on that.
I'm sorry.
No, hey, you know what, Elliot? I'm going to say thanks for myself as well, because we get very caught up in what we do today, being on the air all the time, and our own human frustrations overtake us some days. And it's not for lack of love, it's for it's for the sheer desire of wanting people to awaken to their real power. And you're absolutely right. We got to start putting this in the mirror and empowering the people who have, like all of us, me included. I mean, I came up through the system as well. We've all been inundated, and we're constantly inundated, even more so now with the microwave towers and the harp rays and scalar waves and smart meters and you name it. Even the 60 hertz is designed to keep your heart beating at a certain rate. So we shortened your lives, by the way. You might want to turn the electricity off on occasion. But you made a very poignant point, and I'm going to stand with you on that one. And guilty as
no,
charged. No, hang on, Elliot. No, this is for me. This is me charging me. Guilty as charged.
There's no guilt to have. A natural reaction is to jump on people like my wife and say, you know, what are you, stupid? Here's physics. Here's how steel works. But you know what? If you don't call them stupid and you don't put that rub on and you just show them the physics of steel, you get a lot of converts who then say, I don't believe anything the news is. I don't believe that building 7 just collapsed from that. And now, you know, you show them pictures of buildings that were bombed and hit with planes, and, you know, as long as they're steel, the structure's there. And now they see it. Now they break through the matrix. But if I were to have called my wife dumb and attacked her, she would have backed up, put her back up, and that's exactly what they want to happen. That's why the Kennedy murder has been so successfully covered up, because anybody like us who came out and said it was a conspiracy theory and bullets don't bounce around like that, and it couldn't have happened that way, we attacked people who were listening to the government stories, and they put their backs up to us and just labeled us with that label that was so convenient, and it stops them from having to be educated. But when you say to somebody, here, do you really think a bullet followed this trajectory and did this damage, and you show them how bullets work, they wake up and they no longer believe the horse shit. And that's what our efforts should be at, is helping very smart people break the belief that everything they're hearing from their governments are true, when none of it, zero, is true. It is all, from Sandy Hook to the HAARP-induced weather phenomena to all of these things. The only way we're going to break it is by bringing people into our fold, not excluding them. But let's get back to that patent issue, if you don't mind. Because the patent is the engine to the United States commerce. It's what separated us from the rest of the world, making us probably the most innovative nation ever by leaps and bounds. I don't think there's a period in history that equals the United States innovation. And that was done through the change from the first to file system used around the world prior to the first to invent system. Now, what David Kapos, the former IBM patent expert, who just left the office, did was he came in and said, oh, well, if your attorney beats you to the patent office, we're going to change this all back to first to file. Now, why would we want a system where the filer, who may not have invented it, just because he stole your ID and ran to the patent office first, wins? Because what's going to happen is, like with people like me, when Tony asked me, do you have more, inventions? Sure, I have a lot of inventions, but what's the sense? And that shuts down the engine of commerce. And, I think it was Mark Twain who said that a country without a patent office is like a crab. It can't go any way but sideways or backwards. And that is a fundamentally true statement. So now all of the patents and innovations like cold fusion will be owned by lawyers and law firms who take your invention idea while they're minnow dragging you around like they did for me for months. They're filing patents in their names or their sisters' names. And so now all of the engine of the commerce, other than, patents have been driving our economy forever. I mean, they are the single largest revenue driver in the world. And so all of that money will become centralized to the lawyers, who obviously can outbeat you, especially since they're stealing your computer data. So if you were not smart enough to write your patents and ideas on a piece of paper and mail them to yourself and then fly out to the patent office and video who you're giving it to and take 1,000,000 precautions to prevent it, you're dead. The minute you go online with these things, the minute you go look at the patent office, as we saw, over and over again, the transgressions against our internet privacy aren't there. So, as you're downloading Microsoft updates, they're uploading your patent information.
Boy, that's true. That is so true. I have talked to people about this, and they just don't get it. That they'll go online and talk about, and I've done this. I've been so guilty of this. I had several inventions and go online and write it up and put it in Notepad or whatever and think that you're private. You're not private. Every time you Google a new idea to see if it's out there, somebody's grabbing it, somebody's buying it, somebody's taking it, somebody's thinking about it. People just don't realize that. They need to put it on paper, like you said, mail it to themselves, and secure it and take video of it and talk about it and have witnesses, family members, friends, attorney, pastor, whoever. And you're right. The good old-fashioned common sense way is the way to do it. Stay away from the computer when you're putting together what I would consider top secret information concerning patents, ideas, inventions, concepts, etc.
And Kiler, the best thing here in the U.S. is file your own provisional and then go to a lawyer, because at least you've time-stamped the provisional and you got a year to work on the full patent and getting it all right. So, at least you should do your provisional without anybody and go fly it in. And if you can't do that, lock it into an envelope and, have it delivered and signed for and take every precaution you can. And then you've at least got a minute of protection that your attorney, when you go to him, can't run the idea and front run you. And, but then again, the real truth, Kiler, is it's time to knock this shit off. Meaning we need laws that protect our privacy on the internet, period. Like our mailbox, which is no longer protected. We've got to stop, there's going to be, if they can't get it from the computer, they'll break into your house. If they, as long as we have a rogue government, there's no stopping them from transgressing you at every level. Meaning they can, look at Manning, look at people in Guantanamo who were taken out of their countries because they owned companies and we wanted those oil companies and whatnot, and they have no rights. So they've taken their lives, they've taken their businesses, they've taken their oil, whatever, their family names, and basically they're out of control. If the fox is in the hen house, and if the people continue to wait for the fox to become genteel, it's not going to happen. You need to have smart hunters positioned behind the fox and blast his brains out. And that's how you stop the chicken coop from being slaughtered.
I often wonder what's going to happen with this privacy issue. I've talked to a couple of friends of mine who are geniuses. I have one 15-year-old who's a genius. He's been working for his father in a multi-million-dollar computer corporation. He actually teaches computer techs and engineers. He's 17 now, and just a genius. And he's talking about inventing a rogue kind of Facebook, a rogue kind of situation where people come together and they build these codes. And I told him, look, you cannot invent a code that cannot be broken by the new supercomputers that I've witnessed in Utah and Dallas, Texas. They have computers there now that process quadrillions of bits of information per second. They could break any code in the known universe, and that's just the truth. And it's the truth. But there's got to be a way for us to break down like a sci-fi thing into private sectors. I see that happening. I know you've seen some of these sci-fi movies where these guys are sitting in these weird-looking rooms with all the computers, and there's people coming in kind of undercover, and we're all underground. I see that happening soon, very soon. But I just don't know how it's going to be done.
Well, you're right, because how is it going to be done in a lawless country where, they look at what they're doing in WikiLeaks?
Yeah.
You got the same problem.
But you do see the need, though, that I'm saying, don't you? I mean, let's just say for a moment that we could conceive that idea. There is a tremendous need for those of us who do what we do on the air and talk like we do and study and report on what we do to have some kind of place. I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds impossible. But let's just be utopic for a moment. There is a need, and that would be really neat if we could develop a digital world like that.
Well, I've always said this, Kiler. A friend of mine always says, they're going to shut down the Internet. And I say, okay. So they shut down the Internet, and me and Kiler drag a wire to each other, and we start an Internet. You know what I mean? And we lock them out of the connection. We're not beholden to their connection, meaning it's easy for me and you to run a wire to each other or rent wire space and stay out of their Internet and do it on peer-to-peer type communication.
Yeah.
And get rid of these guys. Start a phone company that's willing to keep your privacy, etc., and then everybody can have a new Internet tomorrow.
Well, that's starting out, that would be tremendously exciting, and it would be a multi-million-dollar idea, but if you start getting advertisers involved and you start thinking money, it's going to go down the hill quick, and you're obviously,
Everybody would fund $20 a year to have privacy on their connection.
I agree.
You'd be a Fortune 1 company tomorrow.
I agree.
Because people would dump this shit of them invading your privacy, scoping out your children for pedophile activities, no protection, etc. If we open up a safe spot, that company will have. I just know from the amount of people that I see sick of what's going on their computers, that their microphones are being hacked, their cameras, their data. That if we started with a core group, I think that's the way to do it. And it may just be a few thousand people at first, but so what? That's how organic things grow. 1,000 people get in, and then everybody's saying, why am I not protected? Why am I not getting what they're getting?
And if it was specific, I believe, to what we're talking about, what we're doing, what our missions are, what our passions are concerning overturning, if you will, the New World Order, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call it, working to educate, train, and uplift and empower people, I think we should keep it specific to that. Many people don't agree with me, but if you don't keep it specific to that, you're going to end up with a bunch of Farmville people, Petville people, gambling people. You're going to end up with a bunch of nuts in there who just
okay. So, Kiler, I don't know if you've seen my presidential speeches for the 2012 election that I did. Did you?
No, I haven't yet. But I'm
okay. I do.
Your stuff here.
I did 2 videos. It's on most of my emails. I'll post them to you in a minute. In it, I talk about what led to my inventions. My original invention, which came out of a dream in a coma, let's call it. And it's called the Thought Journal. And what I wanted to use it for in 2012 was to create an electronic voting system, basically. A process where anybody can sign up to it. We identify you. You become a member of the People's Party. the People's Party takes political issues, legislation, etc., that our party will be voting on, and we put it up online so our party members can modify language, add ideas. So let's say we've got a bill on housing or medical, and now our party has, let's say, 20 million people, and of it, 700,000 are doctors. Now, instead of a handful of politicians who are paid for by the lobbyists, you have all of our people working on the legislation independently, making changes, having their thoughts on the legislation heard, so that doctors are saying, look, the thing they proposed over there in the Republican or Democratic Party is all about this lobbying shit, and nobody's getting real care. Here's what I think we should do medically, and then you have the accountants chiming in the party, and they're putting in the financial data, and then we have what's known as a vote. And 51% on most issues, in my mind, other than environmental issues, which we should raise it to you need a 70% majority or something, we would have a vote. And at 51%, that legislation we have gets passed up to Congress. But now the Republicans have their plan, the Democrats have theirs, and the People's Party have an actual tally. Here's 100 million, or what I say, 20 million, so 51% would be, here's 10 million registered voters who want this plan. How many do you have, Democrats? How many do you have, Republicans? And believe me, they have nobody but their 1% behind any of this shit. Nobody's behind any, you might believe the television that, it was 50-50 on the bill, and the deciding vote went, bullshit. It was pushed through because the vote didn't count. The people's vote.
Well, it sounds like you missed this part, but you didn't. The audience may not have heard it. I did. You've got a wonderful idea here, explosive idea, and it also has to do with educating. See, and I know you've already thought about this. It's not just about bringing all those people together and getting some legislation up to Congress. It's also about educating and monitoring and getting measurable results that you can follow and make sure there's no voting fraud. If you say, look, we had 7 million people brought into our organization, and we know how we voted. We know what we said, and we know what you guys are putting out in the polls, and we lost.
Right.
Something is wrong here. Something stinks here. But I love what you're talking about, because you're talking about not just bringing people together, but you're talking about educating them and enlightening them and informing them and training them as warriors of information and research. And that's not being done right now on a scale that we need to do it. It's not being done right now, except what Katie's doing and I'm doing and Tony's doing and you're doing, but I don't really know who else is doing this. We're not coming together as a powerful group of people that are on the same page. Have you noticed that? That's the problem that Katie and Tony will tell you. That's been my problem for years.
Well, now we would have a party platform.
Yes.
And with, like I said, I did these presidential speeches hoping people would accept the platform and not to be elected as your president, because I would suck. But to make the people the president, to say, hey, look, if the founders of the Constitution, they said it was a body, the Constitution was by the people, for the people. Well, back then you didn't have the technology for the people. So you got a handful of representatives who were of the highest quality ethics, and they did a fairly good job of representing, other than when personal interest got in their way. Now what you've got is you've got representation by lobbyists, and the people have no voice.
Right, and back then people were not as paranoid as they are today, and worried and concerned and stressed and depressed and doubtful as they were back when I was a kid. I'm 56, so back in the 60s, We believed in our Congress. We believed in our representatives. They come and have coffee with us and eat supper with Mom and Dad. I remember this just as well as if it was tomorrow. Many of you out there, youngsters, don't. We knew what was going on, and we were connected to the community. We were connected to the state. My father was connected to the state. We visited. We went to dinners. People were more in tune, more in touch, and more concerned. Nowadays, people are so frightened and so disillusioned and so brainwashed and so scared that they've given up. We have the lowest turnout in the world of voters comparatively. We have the lowest turnout in the world of people that actually participate in government. And believe it or not, I've been on the Hill. Most of those people are clueless as to the New World Order. If you will talk to the average Republican or the average Democrat that is completely involved and immersed in politics, you'll see that they do not want to discuss or talk about conspiracy theory. I'm sure you've ran into this.
Because they're part of the 1% that's pulling this scam.
Exactly my point.
Okay, so the way to get around them, the really, and I'm a 8, my parents always said, if you want to get to A to Z fastest, ask Elliot, because he's straight line. Nothing gets in his thinking pattern. When I think of an idea, a solution to a problem, I literally disregard all of the current theory and start from scratch. And I think if we take the political process and throw it in the garbage in our minds to create the People's Party, what we will be doing is reforming the Constitution so it is by the people, for the people, so we do have an accurate pulse on the connectivity of our members and what they're voting on. And let's just say we can, people want a new party. We saw they wanted Ron Paul. We see that kind of thing. But now we start converting them into the People's Party. If you get a nice sizable chunk of the electorate into this, you dominate because you're able to say, out of 100 million voters, we have 30 million of them, and we know exactly what they want. Now, that kind of political power they'll never break it, meaning we'll always control the vote through the People's Party because it's what the people want, not what 12 guys left in those two parties want.
And if you come across as intellectual and logical and reasonable and a researcher and someone who is calm, cool, and collected and disciplined, you will also gain much attention and much respect from the general public on both sides of the Hill, whether it be Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative, whatever. The problem with the Tea Party, the Tea Party started out really good. The Tea Party started
Karl Rove.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't know if people understand this. A lot of people out there don't realize the Tea Party started out with a good idea. They started out with a good group, and then they turned into what the media calls crazy, insane, dangerous, almost to the point now of being terrorists on crack. If they would have continued on their original course, they could have made a dent, in this thing. But they didn't. And I think you have a good idea in the fact that you want to bring common people in with the desire to make changes in this government and reform.
And here's what I also think. I think that when we break them in the People's Party and people start getting into looking at legislation that affects them and actually putting in comments that might get into the legislation, because the system, if you watch the videos and read the third article I sent you, what you'll see is the system allows the people to actually put in their thoughts and have those thoughts voted up or down into the legislation.
Yes.
So now you've got, if we could get it, the 20 million people, imagine out of 20 million, 10% start working on a piece of legislation. You're talking 2 million brains on a piece of legislation. We're going to come up with solutions to healthcare, starvation, poverty overnight.
I dreamt of a program like yours, and I still have some things on paper. We have a lot in common today. I've dreamt of this, but you know it's going to take a war room as the Pentagon size, where the computer screens are everywhere, the researchers are everywhere. You're going to have advisors. No, you're going to have to. But what I'm saying is, you're going to have to be on your game.
Listen,
you're going to have to be on your game.
I need to recruit an army of geeks.
Yes, that's what exactly.
And then we have to protect it.
Exactly.
And then once that system is available for me and you, let's just say me and you, Kiler, decide to do a 2-person people party tonight. We form the databases for a piece of legislation. We throw up commercial marijuana, which would solve a lot of things like oil problems and deforestation, et cetera.
It would also bring in a ton of supporters.
Well, no, let's just first start with 2 people. Okay,
yes.
Me and you. We develop our little database to handle one piece of legislation. And me and you start to work on it and put in, and we see, okay, this is how voters will vote in. And it's no more, to be quite honest, you could just take the code from Facebook and turn it into a thought journal. And basically, instead of having shit pictures and stupid articles for the most part up there, you'd have a piece of legislation, and now people could add files, add video, add dissertations, add lectures on the subject, get their thoughts heard about that piece, and all the time tracking, how many votes does this have, how many does it need to get elevated to the next level. And I'm telling you, I agree, we might need some source funding.
Yes.
To make a template, we don't need a lot. And once we have the template of how it's going to work, and I started this, Kiler, 15 years, well, actually about 12 years ago, with guys from Sony, Warner Brothers, Intel, a host of top engineers who were excited. And, for us to have to watch the internet go to streaming porn and use all the bandwidth for wasted video was stupid. We could have made the internet an interactive communication platform for everyone around the world and started a massive brain scaling, I call it, where we brain scale ideas, and the people at the end of the day when you have 20 million or 100 million voters working together, at the end of the day, when it's 51% consensus reached, you've thought about everything. You've had millions of inputs that, hey, if you do this medical plan, you're going to knock my hospital out and all my employees are going to be homeless tomorrow. And somebody else might say, well, I could pick up your employees and put them into this new system we're developing. And now we don't have a loss of jobs, and we have a resorting of resources.
Please go with me on this for a second. The idea is wonderful in theory, but the problem is, even with Facebook, you have so many varied kinds of people, so many different types of personalities, education levels, backgrounds, financial, psychodemographic, if you want to break it down, stratification. You've got 500 million plus people on here doing nothing, really. And yes, they're bringing a lot of opinions together. They're putting a lot of energy out there. There's a lot of wonderful people out there, a lot of wonderful things going on, but it's still completely disorganized at the root level, and the government knows this, and the government loves this. I've been up there, and I've just heard them roll on the House at the silliness you mentioned a while ago, $500 billion plus porn industry just here in the United States. And, people posting silly things like you said, people playing games, people not understanding the serious situation we're in here.
But think of how exciting, Kiler, if we open up a people's party and people see that, hey, instead of doing all that mindless drip, I'm actually going to impact legislation that affects my life and other people's life.
Yes.
And be able to be pulled into the system, because people are smart enough to vote on shit, and they do have great ideas for legislation that they're sitting there and they're telling their representative, hey, this is what the fuck we want. and then he walks over to the pharmaceutical company and picks up $400 million. Obviously,
if we could
he votes
convince
against
them,
his people.
we would have to convince them, and I'm an old man, 56 going on 105, and I've been there, done that. If we could convince them that their voice counted, their passion counted, and there was actually something being done that they could see measurable results from, and I've done the polls on this myself, my own polls, then they would go for it. If they knew that the people behind it were real and serious.
So what you show them is that, hey, look, you put in this comment and thousands of people voted it. It actually is now part of our bill.
Yes.
Because you won the argument, so to speak, with the other people and made a change in the legislation that the majority of the party agreed with. Now we're operating on a majority level, where to get to that majority, you have to convince a whole hell of a lot of people and adjust for everybody's thinking. And I am telling you, this would engage people.
And you're not talking about doing this as the swing vote philosophy. Like Ross Perot was the swing vote. You're not talking about doing this as a swing vote approach. You're talking about doing this as a solid, foundational approach to the politic of the People's Party, actually becoming a third party that's not going to be vetoed out, laughed out, or not have enough money to participate. Because as you know, they do not want a third party, and they're going to do everything in their power to quash that idea.
You know what? They're so busy fighting off the lawsuits and crimes they've pulled and the money they've stolen that they're a little busy right now. So, we can't be afraid because of the fact that somebody's not going to want this to go through. We need to forge ahead and start, and, that's why I did those videos.
Well, I'm ready.
I didn't think I was going to get voted in as president. I just wanted to plant a seed. And that's the seed is what will grow into. Let me tell you, I think in the United States, if the real pulse is 99% against 1%, in 5 minutes, you will have every Republican and Democrat that's a real Republican and Democrat, like your grandparents, et cetera, you were talking about, say, hey, fuck these parties that aren't listening to me anyways. Let's go join the People Party where I'm heard. And you will be left with Democratic and Republican parties having 1% of the people, or 3 million people, and we'll have 297 million all working on legislation. We walk into Congress with our people and have their names, votes, numbers, etc., the other parties will disappear. And to be quite honest, it's old school shit. The parties are corrupted. The system is too easily skewed. And we now have a way to make the governments by the people for the people. And you're goddamn right they don't want to see it, and they don't want it to happen. But that doesn't mean it shouldn't happen and that we can't make it happen.
I came up with the People's Party name a while back, and I can actually prove that to you, even though I know you probably trust me. And one of my friends said, oh, Kiler, my God, man, that sounds like a communist kind of thing. That sounds like a manifesto. That sounds like Marx, And I said, well, maybe it is. I said, maybe it needs to be Marx. I said, I've read the manifesto. I said, maybe it needs to sound scary a little bit. It doesn't need to blend in with the current politics. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, it ends it. Meaning once people tune into the People's Party, what the hell would you ever go back to letting some representative who doesn't give a shit about you or what you think?
That would be like going from filet mignon with bacon wrapped back to bologna that was kind of green. It'd been in the box for 3 weeks. Going from our party, going from the People's Party back to this same old bipartisan BS would just be silly. I can't see anybody going back once they bid into the People's Party.
That is so true. You will never go back, and you will never listen. Once you empower them, that they have the ability to regulate their lives together, and what you'll find is that if you run the schematic of the People Party all the way out, see how this structure would operate. what you'll find is that within hours, all of the lobbying efforts to poison your children and everything else through lobbying money disappears in 1 second. They'll never get, because in the People's Party, there is no lobby. It's
right.
Each individual's vote counts as one vote. His voice is heard. His thoughts are voted on. If you want input into the legislation, if not...
You know how everybody says, Elliot, that when you start out with a wonderful thing like this, and it sounds good, looks good, smells good, feels good, all of a sudden you get in there and you start to make progress, and you start to really gain some strong ground and get some dedicated people behind you and with you, beside you, in front of you, and all of a sudden the ego kicks in, and people get silly. And things start getting twisted. Obviously, there would have to be...
But then we can't ever do anything.
Right.
If we have that theory, then there's no sense except to be hopeless and let people just roll over us.
Right. But you do understand what I'm saying, that we would have to have some logical safeguards in place to keep our philosophical end straight and keep our butt in gear and on course and not let ourselves get sidetracked into the power system.
Well, Kiler, that's why the People's Party is beautiful. You don't have elected officials that can corrupt the system. The people would have to corrupt the system together. And you're never going to have that. I think it adds in a level of protection to the body politic that it's never had. And it really does take the pulse of the people and say to them, you don't need an elected representative. You just elected this piece of legislation as a majority. And, okay, we need some guy that will dress up and call president to send into Congress to lay it down.
Right.
But what do we need any elected officials for? We don't.
Right.
We don't need that.
That's a good idea, because, I mean, if you imagine that most of the people are genuinely good people, and it's only the few corrupt arseholes at the top that take this sort of stuff through to the ends, then it would actually work, because the numbers would make it work.
And could you imagine a lobbyist, for example, trying to get fluoride into the water against 100 million registered voters when the first article goes up saying it's a poison? How many people would vote that down? Everybody.
Exactly.
And the lobbyist could go back to his Nazi buddies and say, hey, it didn't fucking work.
Exactly.
Okay? You know, this is how you put a stop to it. You need to be forward-thinking and say, this system has died, but it's still got basic tenets of good, and we have the technology to turn it into the most advanced system of government ever created, the fairest, most powerful and innovative, because from it you will see that the brain scaling, bringing 100 million minds onto an idea that is affecting the people, will quash anything in its path. So when people see, hey, this bill that these guys are sneaking through is going to destroy our rainforest or destroy our forests.
I have some wonderful people that would love to participate in this project who have retired. One has been forced out of retirement to put a black man in his white place by the Commissioner's Court in a certain state that we've been fighting this because he's been at this particular hospital system for 35 years, and he simply retired and talked to me just the other day, former healthcare advisor to Hillary Clinton back when she was trying to get her health bill passed, but they didn't gee-haw at all, and he kind of fell out with her. But very, very powerful man. I'm not going to mention his name on the air. I will in private to you or Tony or Katie. Would love to help with this project, I'm sure, and I know a couple of other people that are very, very powerful in the United States. I used to be a world news reporter and undercover consultant with the governor's house. And it's really just a wonderful idea, and I think we're all on the same track here with how it should run and how it should work and what type of problems we might run into out there. I'd love to work with you in any way or capacity that we can. As you know, maybe you don't, that we're trying to do this in the Eagle's Nest in a small way. My group, the Eagle's Nest, I'm trying to bring 1,000 citizen producers together to learn how to be journalists and reporters and learn how to be citizen reporters. And
this will give you the platform to even do that. Meaning, think of how many people want to do what you're doing and are trying, and it's all separate, not in a centralized place.
Yes.
Meaning, if you were doing that idea under the People's Party, we would have 1,000 new journalists and whatever in our camp working, A, on your project, and B, on our project.
Yes, I could send them over at will, and you could just say, Kiler, I need this, I need y'all to get me this or get me that. They're just dying to get research, and we're starting to make some headway. Katie can tell you, and Tony, we're starting to make some headway, but people are a little bit hesitant, you know. Go ahead, Tony, I'm sorry.
Oh, actually, that was
oh, sorry.
Talking.
You're back.
Well, yeah,
and I want to apologize. I want to apologize for not bringing Tony in there. I thought his sound was bad too. I'm running 4 computers here, and I've got Middle East news coming in, and my mind's spinning like a nut. So I'm sorry, Tony. I'm sorry.
No, it's all cool. It was actually Kate. So carry on, Kate.
Yeah, I've got an echo in my head here, so I'm going to actually switch computers.
We missed you, Kate.
Well, no, I've been here and listening for the last, I guess, about 7-8 minutes.
You're not very loud. You want to turn up a little bit? Can't barely hear you.
Okay, well, that's kind of going to be normal with this setup right now.
Okay.
I just ran into some issues with my other my main computer. The sound just unconfigured itself, so I have to do a full reboot and see what's going on with it. But anyway, I fired the other one up to get on Skype, but. And again, I did miss out a fair bit of the conversation there because of this, but, you know, what we're dealing with here, and I really want to bring the point home, is making people aware. Now, think back, and Elliot brought up a couple of very poignant things with regards to patents, and it dawned upon me, you know, you hear of all these inventions that people come up with that, you know, carburetors that would get 600 miles to the gallon kind of thing, and you know, we're talking some serious patents that would make life easier. And you know how everyone says, well, they were probably bought off or bought up, but you know the reality of it is based on what Elliot's brought to the table. There's a whole new paradigm. It's not the fact that they were bought up; it's the fact that they were stolen, and whoever had them were obviously either told to be silent at at threat. And obviously, because most of the inventors out there, as you guys are well aware, are everyday people that have these beautiful ideas, and of course, generally beautiful ideas come from beautiful people that don't think that anyone out there would be so evil as to steal that from them. That's my own naivety as well, because I give people the benefit of the doubt, regardless of the situation. Especially, I won't get into it in any detail, but with our last stationing we were at, Freedom Reigns, I mean, I gave the site owner, benefit of the doubt on everything, and a lot of stuff has just gotten uncovered over the last few days. And I'm talking some serious stuff that I'm absolutely horrified that I was affiliated with Freedom Reigns to begin with. So I totally get where you're coming from, Elliot and Kiler. What we have to do is definitely that grassroots approach to bring people to the table. And I mean, I'm an anarchist, pure and simple, self-governing, but we'll have to do something in the interim because this system is coming down as it stands right now, no question.
Well, it just needs to be modified. It doesn't need anarchy. The Constitution has been a great document if it's followed. And if we can empower it to the people at this stage in humanity, we are going to open up a new world. And it really will be a one world, one people new world, but not a new world controlled by a bunch of spoiled, rotten, elitist idiots who are driving us into the ground, suppressing technologies, passing legislation that benefits 3 people and screws everybody else. This empowers the people. This puts it back in their hands. And so in a short minute, with this advent, I believe that we will really, that this was that thank God it crumbled like this. Thank God they stole all the money, because this opens up the door. This shows the weakness of the current system, where we now, as a group of geeks, whatever you want to call it, can literally form the basis of our Constitution so that people are getting input on their cell phones. They're voting all day long on what issues are important to them. They're making suggestions to the People's Party for legislation, and the old system goes away right there. Nobody will ever want to be a part where they say, you know, I don't really have any interest in anything, and I just want some guy that was elected by I don't know who to make all the decisions that rule me and my life and my children and everything else. And I'm just going to be happy closing my eyes and letting people do that. And especially right now when it's vulnerable, because everybody sees the fact that these representatives have been hijacked. That it's too easy to have a handful of men rule 300 million people and corrupt versus have 300 million people rule 300 million people. Then it's real hard to corrupt you because you've got to sell your vote, and then you got to find all these other people willing to sell out their votes, and by the time you buy off 300 million people, it wasn't worth trying to put fluoride in the water. But when I only have to buy 36 guys off to get fluoride in your water, despite what the constituents want, you know, that's patty cakes if I got enough money.
Yeah.
And by the way, Tony, one of the biggest advents that we've considered in the Thought Journal / People's Party computer system is the fact that let's put cold fusion up there and try to get legislation to fund it. And we show people that there's free energy out of it. And now, how big is the oil lobby when 100 million people want this legislation funded that funds out cold fusion? And you got scientists coming in with evidence, and you've got all the facts. Now the oil industry doesn't operate in a vacuum of control. They've got to counter the People's Party, and I don't think they ever would be able to. And so it is the way to break us out of this suppression of technologies that are good for the people on the planet and force it back to where it should be, that a good technology gets elevated and the old one goes away.
Totally. Out with the old, in with the new.
Oh, and the only way you're going to do that is if you have the people behind it instead of a group of bought-off representatives.
Well, that's all about the consciousness again. If you can get enough people to raise their level of understanding and comprehension that the technology is real and that it exists, you can help enough people to understand it, and they go, hell no, I'm not having that shit. I want the truth and I want the free energy, and that's the point. So it's down to the consciousness of the people, because they're not going to stand up, and jump up and down for something they don't know exists or don't believe exists.
Okay, so let's make it exist. Put up a page, the People's Party. Start recruiting voters and friends to come in. They don't have to give up their affiliation with the other party. They just need to say for now that they're a member of the People's Party. And let's start with one piece of legislation, something everybody will be concerned with, and start getting people to send in their thoughts and show them that the legislation is changing, that we're planning on taking to the floor. And if me and you and 6 other guys have to take it to the floor with a few thousand people behind us, let's try it out.
You know, the big problem right now, and I've got my fingers pretty much on the pulse of this because of the business I'm in and where I sit here and what I do, is the fact that people are starting to wake up slowly to the fact that we do not need a two-party system. But now, I don't want to go into that in detail on the show because it'll take away from what you're trying to do today, but I do want to say that. The two-party system is simply not working. It's simply not working. And to have a third party come in would not necessarily make anything any better either, but it's something that I advocate for, and I'm going to stand behind you on in any way, shape, form, or fashion, and give you all the assistance that we can through our massive network here at DestinyRadioNetwork.com and Blog Talk Radio and my other 76 platforms as of this morning. But that's also going to be something that will come into play, but maybe not as strong as I think. that discussion concerning, well, now wait a minute, are you guys trying to create a one-party system, a one-world government? There's going to be a lot of that come up, and matter of fact, it already has. But this two-party system is simply not working.
Well, it should be a one-party system, period. You don't need two parties. When it's majority rules out of the mass of the voters, and every voter has an opportunity to input and make change, what do you need two parties for?
Exactly.
Because that is the meat and potatoes of the psychosis right now, the neurosis right now.
But that's the old school, and everybody's willing to opt out of that. I think you'll have literally 40 to 50% of the voting public in the People's Party within 5 years.
Well, I think what you should do is do a poll, and do a scientific poll as much as possible, and I think you should reach out to 1,000 people and ask them what their opinion is on creating a new party, and go into it with some of your ideas and concepts and some of the things we've talked about today, and say, if this could be done, and such and such and such and such could be accomplished, and we could carry ourselves in this manner, would you all vote in this new party? Would you become a part of this new party and abolish the current system of Democrats and Republicans that are getting absolutely nothing, and I mean nothing, done?
Well, they're getting a lot done. It's just for 5 cops. As far as anything done for the rest of the people, that doesn't matter because your legislation is bought off.
Yes. Well, of course it is, and I spoke on the show the other day about the only reason people want to spend $20 million to get a $150,000 job is because of the enormous power that's handed to you and all of your family members and friends and acquaintances after you come into office as a congressman, even a freshman House of Representatives.
Oh, because you're bought off.
The enormous, unlimited power that you have.
And the money.
Yes. And so they're not going to give that up easy. Not without.
But you know what? They don't have to give it up. All we need to do is recruit the people.
I'm just being.
That's the thing. They can still be the Republican and Democratic Party, whoever's left in it, the people who want lobbying and all that and are beholden to that. But that isn't going to matter when you have the majority of the country on your side.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how you stop these guys and take their power from them.
I think you should also bring on to your board of advisors a constitutional lawyer who are older, in their 70s, 60s, late 60s, and who have some of the same ideas. There's a lot of them out there. A lot of them.
Oh, I like Jonathan Turley. He's good.
Yes.
And he's a constitutional scholar, and he's stood on the side of everything right since it started going wrong in the Bush regime. And whether it's Obama or Bush, he's taken, the constitutional approach that it doesn't matter what party, this is bipartisan law, meaning, it's almost crazy what's going on where, we're saying we can break laws because we're the Democratic or Republican Party.
Now, what you're doing is being done already, but not in the exact same way and philosophical background, if you will, as you're trying to do it, and that is, did you hear when Obama came out here a while back and said, I need all my black folks to come in and do such and such and such. Did you see that big deal going on?
No.
Yeah. So, this is being done even there in the Democratic Party. By the president himself. People could not believe he came out and did that. They were just struck down. But that's similar to what you're talking about. What the president did. And it worked.
Well, that's good.
Because he's black.
Okay, but we're people.
Yes, I'm just saying, it's a similar thing.
We're telling people, look, this is the one place your vote and your voice will be counted and heard, and you can see it online as you vote, and you can see your thought enter legislation or get shot down. You can argue and debate. You can have a voice, and you can make fundamental changes to your life and everybody else's that benefit society. I don't think anybody's not going to want to participate other than those who want the corrupted system.
No, I think people have been dumped in the ditch enough to come onto something like this. They've been dissed enough. They've been dumped enough. They've been confused and beat down, and they're broke. The middle class is falling into the lower class. I think people have woken up enough to be able to grasp this and be able to bite into it and become a part of it.
Kiler, put up on the first question, how many of you want to knock down Social Security and change the benefits, or do you want to up them so that they're current with current states and blah? How many voters do you think we're going to get? You're going to get 90% of America to vote the right way, and you'll have the Democrats and Republicans holding, a piece of paper that says we should cut all their benefits.
And by the way, those geeks you talked about a while ago could be some really good researchers. And by the way, everybody out there who's got a couple of brain cells knows that research is a specialty, as is neurosurgery or thoracic surgery. You bring those geeks in to pull that research that people are not able to read because they're too busy paying their electric bill, they're too busy trying to buy food and pay their insurance, and you bring those together. Right.
And they're hiding it, meaning why haven't the people read the health care bill, which has death panels in it? Meaning, I'm sitting here because you can't find the fucking thing.
I've got the exact pages, but, not very many people even want to go and look at that. But
look, I got it, and then it disappeared, and nobody can really see it. It's your Obamacare is bad. Really, it's Romney care in the first place, so it's really a Republican plan. So I'm not exactly sure how the Democrats think it's their plan.
We're back to killing Grandma again. You remember when that came out? We're back to killing Grandma again, and it's all there, written in just plain English, if you'll just take the time to read it.
Well, now, if you could find it to read it.
Well,
but
I can send it to you.
What?
I can send it to you.
No, listen, I've read it. What I'm saying is the people don't have a spot where they can go and say, here's the 800 pieces of legislation that people are talking about. I want to read this myself. Now, if you had all the doctors in the People's Party reading that, do you know how many would want those things changed? But what we're seeing is that the pharmaceutical company this and has bought off 38 guys, and we're all fucked. And that's why it's so important in enabling the people to have one central government stop where you can go up to your local legislations that are affecting you from your city to your state to your nation to your world.
Let me, if I may, interrupt, and then I'll sit back and listen. I'm sorry I talk this much, but two questions real quick for y'all to please think about. Number one, how does the fact that presidents are appointed, which I don't want to go into that tonight on research, but I'm just telling you, how does that affect this, presidents being appointed and not elected? And the second thing would be Republicans and Democrats, when I've been on the Hill, when I go backstage, when I run around with Netanyahu, and I've been up there with the big wigs and the big boys on the yachts, there is no bipartisanship. They're all in agreement on the same thing. It's all just a big game like wrestling. It's all pre-scripted. Even the debates were all pre-scripted. They were having champagne together in the back room and having a ball and trying to say, matter of fact, I almost got taken out. And when I say taken out, I mean killed. I had a video of this, and I was going to do some mainstreaming on it, and I can't tell you what happened on the air, but I'll tell you off air what happened to the boys with the SUVs. These guys were saying, now look, I'm going to say this, and you go like this. And then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to step backwards, and you act like you've got an emotion there, and let's roll that out for about 5 minutes, and then we're going to take a turn to this. Let me have that script again. Now, those 2 points I want you to answer for me, please. How interesting is that? Anybody?
Elliot, you still there?
Yeah, I was waiting. I'm just double checking here. I was just I got my other computer back and running, by the way.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, Elliot's still online. He's sounding like he's okay. I mean, one of those things is you wouldn't get it. If I can be so bold as to try and answer that. Number one is if the legislation that's been passed has already been passed by the people, then you can forget you guys rolling up in your SUV knocking one person out because the vote's already been passed. So it wouldn't be an issue. They wouldn't, if they did try that, then the people would roll up and knock them out. But that's the point. The legislation should be passed online by a majority vote, and therefore there is no question it's passed. Period. That was the second question. I forget your first, caller.
Well, my first was the fact that just wanted him to reply from his point of view, and his idea about a president's being, and he did allude to that he does believe that because of the voter fraud, the voter digital fraud, thing that's going on, that presidents are appointed and not elected. That's something that's also coming out slowly, very, very slowly. That's going to be real hard to convince people that presidents are appointed and not elected. But
this is why we need to educate them, because there's a lot more we've got to convince them of yet, mate. Never mind that. That's easy. The technologies, these guys are told well in advance, years in advance, who's going to be in and who's going to be out, a long time ahead of it.
Of course, and that's hard to swallow for the American public.
Yeah, we've got to bring them up to that sort of thing slowly. But there wouldn't be a president.
What really raises people's eyebrows, Tony, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but what raises people's eyebrows is when I talk to them and tell them that they were backstage having a good old ball. They said, "Oh, no, that's impossible. Don't even talk to me about that." People get mad. Don't even mention that to me, that Democrats and Republicans are backstage having a party and talking about what they're going to do. Don't even come near me, I've had people say. I've had them get violent with.
They don't get it. This is the problem.
They want to think that this is a real battle between good and evil. The Democrats think they're good and the Republicans think they're good, even though they're falling fast right now. They don't really have a plan of any kind at all. People still want to think that this is Batman and the Joker.
Yeah, they're all out the door, mate. That's the point. They're all out the door.
Yeah. So where did...
I'm not sure where Elliot went, but I thought Kate was going to say something then. Kate?
Yeah, it's still, let me just double check here. Oh, looks like you got bumped out of the call here. Sorry, I had two windows with all the names open, so I'm going to see if, I don't know if I can pull them back in. But let me just try here. So, go figure. Okay, 1 second here. Sorry guys, sorry about the delay here. All right, let me see here. Oh, okay. So yeah, I pulled them back into to the call. Okay. For some reason, they must have got bumped. So lost connection back for 10 minutes. I have to go. So it was great. Anyway, so hopefully we can get them for a few more minutes, and yeah, because we know we had to go. So
yeah, I think he's already gone over. Well, we've nearly gone over. Yeah.
Okay, did you have to be on a new computer?
No, I actually, it was funny, I walked away from the other computer for a sec, and it just started working again. So I don't know what's up. Skype's been a bit weird of late, so no worries there. Just Elliot said he had to go, so I'll just stop ringing his Skype. Anyway, yeah, I wish I'd have heard. I guess I'm going to have to listen back to the archive to actually hear what went on for about 25 minutes that I missed.
I think it was very powerful, don't you, Tony?
Yeah, absolutely. Some very good information coming across the board on both ways. But, yeah, a little bit, well, I mean, I say a little bit more analysis. But, yeah, I think in principle it would work, especially if we could get basically a secure data system whereby we knew it wasn't going to get hijacked. I think that's the crux of it, and we touched on that early into the discussion. Obviously, if you've got so many people and that everybody's on an electoral roll, etc., but as long as the data can't be messed with. But I mean, if you want to, it's a simple question, people. Again, we come back to the same basic stuff. Is it good to to digest fluoride? And everybody goes yes, or everybody goes no. Well, as long as everybody's educated to the point, they can make an educated decision. So again, all of this stuff. Do you want a lower tax, or do you want to be taxed out of flipping existence? Yes or no? You know, it's common sense to a point. So, I mean, even with an education program at low, we could put some simple answers across and get some simple ticks or crosses. You know, so as long as the system is...
The big question that comes across to me all the time is, what can I do? I don't feel powerful. I don't feel like I'm making a difference. I don't feel like, no matter what I do, no matter where I go, no matter who I talk to, I don't see any results, and I just feel powerless, completely powerless, and I'm sick of it. And people have just gotten to the point where they're so depressed that they're giving up. Even those that are waking up, even those that are awake that I talk to.
Well, what
I feel sometimes completely disconnected from any hope of change.
Again, that sometimes can actually add to the problem rather than reduce it, because the more of a mess it looks, the more despair that you get.
Of course.
And that's part of the actual flipping design everywhere. It's all about keeping the information hidden long enough so that they can get it actually into place. And then when you start to realise the magnitude of the information, half the population won't believe it, and the other half will just simply go, oh my God, and give up, and that's part of the program.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's still coming back down to the education. You know, don't despair. Look, we have got the problems, but we've also got the solutions. But you need to be aware of the solutions, not just the problems.
I'm working on a plan now to bring us all into the mainstream of what we're doing. I like to say the mainstream, use that word just for a moment, without it being dissed, because I'm not talking about the mainstream that we always talk about as being bad. I think it's time that we come out in the open where we can get the same kind of teeth and the same kind of bite as the president would, or the vice president would, or congressman would, who's running for office, or a governor. I think it's time to build a network that's powerful enough to get a bite out of several million people. And so far we haven't been able to do that because it takes money, it takes coordination, and it takes people who are skilled in the art of the politic, philosophy, psychology, history, everything. And that's been the problem for us as talk show host, independent public radio talk show host, is we haven't had the funding, and we haven't been able to get together close enough to stay close enough without our egos getting in the way or something else.
Here, can I just, hey, Kiler, I just want to jump in there, because we've got a lot of beautiful listeners out there right now. You don't need a lot of money. We've been doing this for a long time, and you know, you start off with, I remember starting an FM radio, having, you know, maybe 10 or 15 or 20 people dialed in, and by the time I got railroaded out of the station, it was the most popular show on the station. So again, it's about getting the right message out. So here's what I like to put upon, you know, everyone listening right now. If you think what we're doing is helpful, and you get some good resonance out of it, and you see it as a proactive, positive way to move forward, you know, all it takes is for you to tell, you know, one friend or two or a couple of friends, say, listen, you know, just for the fun of it, tune in some night, because I guarantee it's going to be entertaining regardless of what night you tune in. But, you know, tune in and, you know, tell them the same thing. If you enjoy it, just, you know, let other people know, because that's how we grow. We don't need money. Money, no. You don't need money. What we need is heart. And what you got to do is have the heart to step forward and say, you know, this is worthwhile. And you don't have to do any, quote, selling, unquote, of the show. Just say, listen, yeah, I found this really cool show. You know, it's 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and whatever times your shows are on, Kiler, and whatever. And, you know, you should really tune in. They talk about some very important issues that you're not going to hear on TV. I mean, you've got the George Norries and what have you, those guys out there doing the coast to coast and you know, on mainstream radio, syndicate and everything else. And they do have good listenerships because, you know, people are truly interested.
35 million people. Yes.
Yeah, that are truly interested in something different. But I'll guarantee you, on a show like Coast to Coast, you'll get close to the truth, but you won't get it handed to you, because that's not how mainstream works. I'm trying to remember the name of the guy that got railroaded by Zionists out of Toronto. He was on CFRB in Toronto. I was doing a midnight show, and he ended up getting railroaded because he crossed the line. He crossed the Zionist line, and he got the boot, and it was very well known. I'll think of his name, but...
Interestingly enough, George Norrie is not trying to form any kind of specific movement or focus or bringing people together for a specific reason.
No, he's entertainment, right? He's purely entertainment. Yes, he brings on some fascinating people, but there's no cohesion to the concepts that he's bringing forth, in that, a unity of truth, as it were, versus, what we're dealing with day to day on meat stick media, right? So, I mean, it is a little outside the box as far as meat stick media goes, but it doesn't. It goes far enough to keep people's interest. It's like I was saying the other day about people. The system keeps us just smart enough to run their machines and just dumb enough to not understand why we should, day after day, wasting our lives making someone else, wealthy on our life source. Like, here's the thing: when people have things stolen from them, it's not the material item that's stolen; it is the energy that went into procuring those for things that people may enjoy. So again, I don't put money value on anything. I put take for example the way the system took everything from me, family and all. I mean, there are decades of my life that they basically stole and erased. It's funny. About 5 minutes ago, I was chatting with someone on Facebook, and I just got accused of being a taker. Really? Okay. Well, I'm glad you think that way.
What in the hell brought that up?
Oh, it's a little penny ante little tiff that this individual has with it, and it's no problem. I don't want to get into it.
A taker. Okay. Well, that was just interesting. That was a left hook for me. I never dreamed of you being a taker.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was kind of my point. I'm thinking, well, the only where did that come from?
Last night.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun, but
I lost a few friends when I brought the Nation of Islam in, and people that transcribing our shows and now yours in the Middle East. I lost a few friends, and I got some hate mail and some death threats, and because I brought the Nation of Islam in and some Farrakhan, one of his under-ministers, in, and we're talking about unity and bridging the gap and trying to bring women up in the Islamic movement and give them empowerment and so forth, and my people there are trying to work on that along with Christians and Buddhists and Hindus.
Everybody, we all need to work together, Kiler.
But anyway, the sad thing was there was so many people came out against me for that.
Well, they didn't come out against you. They came out against themselves, because obviously if you're coming out against anything in particular by label or by definition, what you've in fact done is agreed that the system owns you, in that you have been completely conditioned into one way of thinking, their way of thinking, and that's exactly what keeps the wars fomenting and keeps the bankers rich. So, I mean, what do I know? I'm just a songwriter.
Yeah, me too. Musician, songwriter, yeah. Old talk show host here.
Yeah, so, I mean, it really goes without saying, and, people can take their shots all they want at me and at you and the rest of them. See, here's the thing, right? The only judge I have and the only judge I need is called a mirror. And generally when people, go out and accuse others of things of a personal nature, well, that's their own mirror shining back,
Yes, it is.
Of course, I mean, someone says something like that to me, I take an immediate measure of myself. Am I? Because that's what I do. I mean, I'm in a constant source of, or a constant condition of sourcing out the things that I need to repair and heal within me, so that I don't fall into that same paradigm, that same mental ego trap that has so many people owned. And I got to tell you, and I'm going to go back to Elliot's comment earlier with regards to, the people. I mean, yeah, I've said it before too. People have been absolutely indoctrinated into this, and we didn't stand a ghost of a chance coming out of the womb, coming into this world, as far as how this world operated. We go off what we were taught by our parents, and then of course the schools and churches and all the rest of it. And we don't have an opportunity, literally from day one, to formulate our own canvas, to paint our own canvas, and just to be an observer of the world. So again, this is somebody else's illusion. This is somebody else's creation, and those that created it, for those that still believe in it, and I'm talking system, government, constitution, all of it. It's all illusion. Like the last, you mentioned something about having a panel. The last person I'd invite on a panel is a lawyer, especially knowing what I know about the system and how it really works.
Well, we will need constitutional advisors, and there are wonderful people out there.
Well, you don't need a constitution when you're following your heart. This is the point I'm trying to make.
I'm saying when we're talking with Congress, yes, we will, and when we're dealing with the front line of this, we will. Yes, of course. There's no way around it. There's too many legalities involved to get over and get through and get under.
And that's going to be the tripwire. That's always going to be the tripwire. No, I'm talking even thinking that you need to do that, Kiler.
Oh, you have to. There's no way around it.
Okay, here's a question for you then, Kiler. Let's get passionate for a second. Is or is not your Congress bought and paid for?
Well, that's not the issue here.
Well, I'm just saying
you need some of the best minds to pull this people's.
Yeah, and we need to take those scummy minds that have been polluted.
You're not going to get the local grocer on the front line here.
Oh no, and I don't expect them to.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. You're going to top minds on that front panel.
Okay, Kiler. What I'm getting at is I don't grant Congress or Senator, any government official, the power or the right to rule over me or anyone. This is the problem that we've got into, is we've given ourselves away to these demons. Now what we have to do is just take the demons down, get rid of it. And the more that we think that we have to work within their system, the more we're controlled, because they control the system. They control the vertical. They control the horizontal. And what we have to do is just smash the TV. That's it.
Yeah.
Yes, and I am still saying that you're going to need, on the front line, you're going to need people that know the law inside out, both common law and rule of law, and you're going to need people to know how to jump over these fences, through these fences, and drill holes through these mountains. And to do that, you're going to have to be very, very highly educated.
Tony, jump in on this, because you know where I'm going.
Yeah, I know what's happening now. No, the law is being a construct all along. It's because of the law that it's constructed basically a box for us to live in. So the law is as much guilty as the politicians, as the system, as the financial, the monetary, the energy,
what I'm
the
saying, like if you went into
all
a
the
court
rest of
with
it.
common law, and you didn't really know a lot about what you were talking about, you're going to get your ass in a whole lot of trouble. If you knew a lot of what you were talking about, and you were able to file the affidavits and the correct documents with every possible step they come against you.
Yeah, but Kiler, I need to get... Yeah, we need to get you out of the construct of the system thinking that somehow an affidavit is going to do anything. When people have a name, this is it.
You have to file affidavits in
common law.
Hang on,
Kiler, let me finish, please.
You have to file common law affidavits.
No, because they don't recognize them, Kiler, because if you file something with your name on it, you're already owned, you've already lost.
You don't file it with your name on it.
Okay, then what relevance is it, and where's it coming back?
You don't use your owned name, your slave name, when you're dealing with common law, but that's another story.
Well, no, I totally get that, but again, the whole system is built on the construct of birth certificates and names. It goes back to, the whole world went into slavery in 1933. And you can thank FDR for that, and you can thank a whole handful of other government officials when the world went bankrupt. Not just the U.S., the whole planet went bankrupt, because there was not enough gold to pay back the debts because of some private corporation called the Federal Reserve and the International Monetary Fund and the International, business settlement? Anyway, and it all goes back to Rome anyway, regardless. The fact is, what we have around us are a bunch of elites that have constructed a system that they write the laws according to them in statute form, and it goes way deeper, way deeper.
Let me just say this before I go here.
Sure.
In order to fight the enemy, you must know the enemy's tactics, education, and rules and position. And that's what I'm talking about. Listen to me. That's what I'm talking about here. I don't want it to get twisted before we get off the air. We're going to have people on the front of this who know that system inside out in order to do the right thing on this side. If you can't send the three stooges, Mo, Curly, and Larry up there, is all I'm saying, on the front of this thing to administrate it and walk it through and get it done, okay?
You're not going to solve it. What I'm trying to get at, I spent 28 days in fucking solitary proving that it was wrong, that they don't follow their own laws. I exposed corruption to the highest levels, cops included.
Right, but a lot of screaming and yelling and ranting on
there wasn't.
Their emotions is not going to solve the problem.
No, I'm not saying that is going to solve the problem. What I am telling you, what I am trying to tell you, is that what you're saying is still within their construct. We have to dissemble their construct.
In order to do that, you must know it inside out.
No, well, hey, listen, I got a pretty good...
What it's based on.
What was that, Tony?
You need to know what it's based on.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
That.
And you have to know how the system works. If they throw a curveball at you, you have to know how to thwart that or combat that, or you're going to lose your constituency. You're going to lose your 20 million people. If you do not have smart people on the front who are educated and know the common law system well and the politic well, both from the Republican standpoint, Congress, and how the political system works in order to deal with them, you're going to lose the game before you start. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
I agree with you 100%.
Tyler, if you're going to play the game, then you're actually owned by it. That's the point I'm making. If people think that they can go in, well, look at what happened to Elliot, for crying out loud. They're gonna stonewall him all day long.
And how would you play a game of chess if you didn't know the rules? If you didn't know how a pawn moves, or if you didn't know how a castle moves, or if you didn't know how a queen moves? Tell me if you sit down there at that
I know, and that's the problem, is that what they've done is they've created the game, and they didn't bother to tell anybody how it works. And the first mistake that someone makes, they get their knuckles rattled, and then they keep moving on to the point where...
I'm agreeing with you, Katie, 100%. You're just not hearing what I'm saying.
Oh, I'm hearing what you're saying, but it's all system-driven, and I'm trying to break...
Not on our side, it's not. Not on the people's side. They're still writing the documents. They're still proposing to Congress. They're still writing the laws that we want.
You're still feeding where attention goes, energy flows is the point here. What you're doing...
Well, you just can't take a congressional bill up and just throw it on the table and have an emotional fit and say, you know what, we're just here, and we're going to make this work, and we're not going to look at your system at all, and we're not going to listen to your system at all, and we're not going to do anything with you guys. Here's this damn thing, and you just read it. Yeah, they're going to tell you to fuck off.
Oh, absolutely, because they're going to tell you that anyway, even if it is right. They're going to do what they want to do because you still think it's the system that you need to be part of.
Not if you're following the original Constitution, which they do not do, and you're following the common law and every other law that you and Tony and I and Elliot believe in. They're not going to do that. That's what I'm saying. You're going to have some smart people on... I don't know why we're in this argument. I mean, we're going to have some smart people on the front that know both and all of what's going on in the system in order to fight the system. And we're going to have to deal with the system no matter whether you like it or not. You're going to have to work within the system at some point, at some time, in some particular specific way.
I did. I stepped out of it.
Well, you're not talking about the People's Party then. You're talking about you. I'm talking about
I'm talking about me and every single individual creator god out there that's listening.
Well, you're not going to get everybody to step outside the system in the People's Party. You're not going to change the culture.
I don't want anyone to step outside of any party. What I want people to do is step up to their own responsibility as an individual. That's what I want them to do. And what the system has done has made everyone subservient in a nanny welfare state, thinking that they can't do anything without the government, that somehow, building a road is the government's issue, when you stop and think about it, the greatest time in American history was prior to 1900, where it was self-made individuals that went out and that made America great, and in 1913, everything got hijacked. That's when the Patent Office was set up, that's when the Federal Reserve was set up, the Income Tax Act was put into place. 1913 was a very pivotal year on this planet, not just for the U.S., because most people don't understand that everything that comes through the U.S. matters worldwide on a legal basis.
Yes.
Everything comes through the UCC.
And I will also tell you that successful people follow successful people. And if you have ever started a business in your life, which I've been CEO of 5, you're going to know that you're going to need money. And you keep saying you don't need any money. You're going to need money or people are not going to follow you. Those 20 million people or 10 million or 5 million people that you want in the People's Party, if you're eating bologna sandwiches and you're talking about eating beans and rice and borrowing cigarettes, they're going to think you're a complete freaking idiot.
Yeah, and you'll have lots of people to talk, and you'll have lots of people to talk to in the FEMA camp. Absolutely. And that's where, if that's what it comes down to, for people to finally wake up, then that's what it's going to take. But quite frankly, I don't judge someone on the fact that they like eating bologna sandwiches. I'm a vegetarian, so I wouldn't. But
they will. The people will.
But I understand that, and that's because the system has trained them to judge.
You're going to need $1 million. You're going to need $1 million to run the People's Party. It'll tell you that.
I don't want to run any party. You're going completely 180 on me here, Kiler.
You're talking about more of a commune.
No, I'm talking about
a third party.
Tyler, would you stop putting words into your mind that I didn't say? Let me tell you what I'm trying to tell you. Please. What I'm talking about here, my friend, is getting everyone to accept their own responsibility. Instead of looking to a group or a party or whatever, we come together as a collective in that regard. We don't come together because someone's a leader, because I'll tell you, the standard operating procedure for this system is as soon as a leader is spotted, they pick them off.
Yep.
Well, I agree. I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. You're just not, honestly, it's God, you're not hearing.
I am hearing you, Kiler.
All I'm saying is the administrative front of this and the main group of people that are doing the meat and potatoes of this thing and the organizational ground zero central control room, they're going to need $1 million to make this thing work. They're going to need to pay expenses, and they're going to need to pay bills, and they're going to need to pay salaries, and they're going to need to purchase insurance and forward liability, or they're going to
Kiler, please, buddy. As soon as that $1 million is spent, and that group is built up just big enough, guess what comes in? The big bad guys come in and take it down and take it out. It's happened countless times over this.
Let's just let it roll through and see. Yeah. We'll all put our gifts in, and we'll all put our work in, and we'll do the really hard work and on the hard line. And I'll just show you that we're going to need $1 million to pull this off, or otherwise it's not going to even get off the ground.
Well, hey, listen, I'm not even interested in starting any sort of party. Not a chance am I political.
Well, it is a party, and Elliot agreed that it's a third party. Yes, it is.
Well, no, again, see, you're still trying to play in the same fucking paradigm. Oh, you guys, you fucking...
What's your language now?
Well, you please...
We're the human race. That's what Kate's trying to say.
Yes, we're not...
Yes, we're the human race, but we're also intellectuals, and we have brains, and we have neurology, and we have psychology, we have education, and we're working within a very complex system here, and we need to know how to deal with it.
Get rid of it. It's very simple. Love thy neighbor.
Bring it down.
There it is. There's your answer. Love thy neighbor. Any questions? You don't need common law for that. You don't need statutes. You don't need legal. You don't need constitutions. Love thy neighbor.
Tell me what you think I'm saying, then. Please reflect a little bit and tell me what you think I'm saying that's important to you, that you're empathetic and you're compassionate to my gift and my knowledge and my wisdom and my background and my experience. Let me know that you appreciate me as a person and as one who really...
Tyler, you already know that. I don't need to keep readdressing that because I've made a point you might not agree with. Tyler, you're a beautiful human being. I wouldn't have you or want you to be a regular with us. Because you bring passionate stuff to the table. What I'm trying to do...
I was just trying to ask you to reflect a little bit to see if you understood where I'm coming from as an experienced person on the Hill.
I am not going...
advocate, activist, you know.
Yeah, agreed.
It's already agreed. It doesn't even need to be said.
Okay, good.
And the fact that it is being brought up, Kiler, to me, comes at me from thinking that I'm trying to disparage you, and I'm not. What I'm getting at here is very simple. The solutions that most people are going to come up with, intellectuals especially, are those that are still entrapped and encased within a system of control, thinking that somehow they can make that system work for them. It was not designed to work for the people. It never was, and it
was not. I agree.
So how the hell can you expect to write an affidavit or talk to Congress? These monkeys don't give a shit. They're psychotic.
Yes, I understand you feel frustrated about this.
Well, I'll tell you, the essay that I'm working on right now is at what point, people, at what point does it take for an ex-LAPD, ex-Navy man to go rogue and start offing his comrades? Well, I'll tell you at what point that happens is because they trained him. That is exactly what they trained. And they trained it to such a degree that whenever they crossed one of their own that had a sense of honor and has a sense of honor, was actually completely duped into this concept that somehow, being a cop is an honorable profession, which it is not. It used to be, not anymore. Now it's just a money grab, tax takers. That's all they do. End of story. It's all policy enforcement, corporate statutes. Okay? Now what point did he snap? Well, I'll tell you, because at what point he snapped was when he tried to correct one of his co-workers who decided to kick a mentally handicapped individual that was down on the ground. He reported it. He had his ass handed to him, and they railroaded him out for breaking the thin blue line. And what he's done is he spent the last 3 years coming up with a plan.
I hear exactly what you're saying, Katie, and I understand what you're saying.
That is the essence of the system we're dealing with. That's what it creates.
Yes.
And it's going to destroy itself. These guys that are in Congress and Senate and all the rest, the bankers and the rest of them, are all shitting themselves right now because that was the powder keg. That was the Lexington shot that got fired. That's the start of the end for them.
You're helping me to understand a lot, to understand your feelings about what you're saying and where you're coming from. It's helping me a lot.
And vice versa. This is why I love having you and people like Elliot and Tony and so we can actually get these hard to cover issues out where they are impassioned. We're dealing with a shitty world right now that we're making better. Every day that someone wakes up, it just got that one resonant frequency higher. And that's what is scaring the crap out of the elites. And they know it, and I don't know about you, but I can certainly feel the energy of it. These guys are absolutely shitting themselves.
I believe that they are very concerned and very paranoid and very worried and looking over their shoulder to a point, understanding that people are waking up and becoming more aware through these shows that we do and through all the other advocates and activists out there that are empowering and informing the people. They are becoming very worried and very nervous. Even as powerful as they are and as powerful as they have been, they're realizing that they are not bulletproof and that they cannot stand very much longer.
No, exactly. And we only got a couple of minutes left here. I just wanted to finish off with this notion. And oh my God, Kiler, I love coming on with you. And anytime, buddy, you got something going, you need to pull Tony or myself in. Feel free. I got to tell you right now.
We're unified. We're unified.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Now, you take a pack of wolves and you pen them up, and you don't feed them for a while. Say you run out of food. And you walk into that pen, and they're expecting food, and it's not there. What do you become? You become the food, and that's what's going to happen when this system collapses. That's why this whole fear mongering of the system collapsing, that's their doing. I want the damn thing down because they know as soon as it comes down, they got no more treats for their dogs, and as soon as their dogs get hungry, guess what they start feeding on? The masters. That's where they're afraid of, and that's where we're going. Evil, by definition, must destroy itself, and I'm just here to help it along. You know?
Yep.
I think the diversity here works. I think everybody works together good.
Oh yeah, it's like I told you that we're gonna get impassioned, and this is what people need to hear. They need to feel what we're doing. Whether we agree on everything or not, Kiler, is irrelevant. What people need to know is that we give a shit. And we want them to as well.
Look, this is part of the point. I need to get this across if I've got time. But I mean, this is why they built the deep underground military bases. And guess what? They're getting blown up all over the place. Their rabbit hole or their hidey hole is getting taken away from them rapidly, one by one by one. I understood today.
10 seconds till countdown.
Yeah,
a lot of the tubes have been shut down as well.
Yeah, we'll go past a little bit. I just want to say thanks, Critical Mass Radio, and Paul, Lisa, and the crew there for giving us a chance to have this platform where eagles soar. And I guarantee you, we're going to be flying higher and higher every time we do these shows. Regardless of what comes at us. And, regardless if we may not agree on every single point, that's not the point. The point is we're on it together. We have the same intention. Let's tear this thing down and rebuild something golden.
I agree.
Absolutely.
What happened to Elliot? Does anybody know?
He had to go anyway. He actually, I think he stayed on longer than he probably wanted to or could. We figured maybe an hour and a bit, but he was an hour and a half. So. Okay. No, it's all good. We'll tell you what. Let me end this episode, and maybe we'll have a quick call because I am really pissed off that my computer dropped the way it did tonight, and I missed out on so much. But I will be going back to listen to the archive. And speaking of which, we'll end this episode and give you guys a quick call back. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right. Much love to everybody. Thank you for tuning in tonight on Where Eagles Soar with Kiler Davenport, Tony Z, and yours truly, Kate of Gaia. Much love to all, and we'll catch you tomorrow night. Take care.
Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye, everybody.